want to revisit that you might remember I did quite a bit of in my early videos, and that was for comprehension or list comprehension. So lists are a thing which I'm quite fond of. I like working with JSON, and in addition to lists, I do a lot of stuff with dictionaries as well. So there's different ways in which you can work with lists, and the way for comprehension works, it works slightly different. It's very similar but slightly different to the normal way of working with lists. So you might be quite familiar with this. So if I have a list and I put some strings in that list, for example, and then I have a for loop. So for x in L, print x, and then I can print out my loop, right? And if I wanted to do some transformations, for example, I could, let's say I had another list here, and that other list were something like x, or let's say list 2, and I'll just open that up, and I could have something like list 2 dot append, and I'm going to append it with a string. So let's say that's f string, and let's say I append the index number to it, right? So enumerate. So let's get that index number, and I can append the index number. So and then I can print it out. So I'll print out my new list. So here's my new list, and I've done some transformations. So is index 0 to A, is index 1 to B, is index 2 to C. So as you can see here, I've got an original list, I've created a new list, I've created my for, I've got a index, so I'm asking for my index with enumerate. I've got my index over here, and then I'm doing a transformation. So I'm populating list 2 with append. So this is not the ideal way to do it, and the best way to work with lists is more, regarding the principle of a list being immutable. So in that way, we're going to create a new list rather than making changes to the existing one. So lists aren't immutable. They are mutable in Python. However, tuples are immutable in Python. So the way to do it, let's just comment this out. We can do it simply in one line rather than doing it like this. So if I were to open a list, and if I were to call that list 2 equals, so let's say x in for, well, let's start off this way. So for x in L, what we're going to do, we're just going to print it out. So let's do the same thing here. I'm going to put an enumerate on there, so that way we can also get something useful like the index. can spell enumerate. Okay, yeah, there you go. And if I'm going to do that, then I also I'm going to put the index beside the x, or wherever I want to put it, within the for and the in, of course. And then in order to output that data, that item, we can just output it. So let's just do a print. So for the moment, I'll just print it out. I'm not going to do anything with L2. Oh, I can leave that there. Doesn't matter. So print exactly what we did here. So let's just grab that, and then we can run that. So it gives us exactly the same thing, but this time I'm just printing it out rather than saving it to my new list. So I'm doing all the transformation inside of the list. So I've opened up a list, it's a brand new list, and I'm passing through this list, and I'm doing a transformation on that data. So with that data I can save it as well. And I can print out the new list. And then here we have it, exactly what we did over here. We can now do it this way, and this is a much cleaner, nicer way to do, to work with lists, just using for comprehension. All right, so there's another thing which I'm going to show you, and that is how to loop two lists in a for comprehension. All right, so we're going to say test loop to lists. So we're going to get a little bit more kind of, not complicated, but we're just going to put a little bit more information in this. So let's have two lists. So this time I'm just going to do lists with numbers. So list 1 equals 1, 2, 3. So these are integers. Don't need to put them in quotations, otherwise they'll be strings. And then I'll have 5, 10, 15, right? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is build my for comprehension. So I'll have for A in list 1, and the next thing I'll do is to the side of it I will have for B in list 2, right? So my initial list is what I've started with, and then I've got my second list, and then we can print that out, and we can say print A, B. So we can print out those numbers. Alright, so what have I got here? I need to put self in there. Okay, there we go. Alright, so we've got, so let's just take a look at those numbers again, right? So 1, 2, 3 in the first list, then 5, 10, 15 in the second list. So we've got a loop of 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 110, 210, 310, 115, 215, 315. So what it's done, it's looped it as 1, 5, 1, 10, 115. Or has it? 5, 1, 5. Okay, yeah, sorry, my mistake. 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 110, 210, 310. then 115, 215, 315, right? So that's the way it's done it. All right, so now I'm going to show you another loop. Now what you might have is something like this. So def test loop a list of lists. And list of lists is something that you'll come across, and you might work with that quite a bit like I do. And the reason why you might have a list of lists, let's say for example you have a document, and in the document you've got lines, right? And what you're doing, you're scraping through that document or reading through that document, and you're doing something with each line. So each line that you read through, you're going to assemble some information and put it into a list. Then you're going to go down to the next line, and then you might get, scoop up another list. So then you end up with a list of lists, right? So you've got one list, and in that one list, you've got lists or rows. So let's take a look at that. So we'll have our list, and in that list we'll have additional lists. So this is exactly what I was trying to describe, right? So let's put some data in there. So we've got 1 and let's do numbers 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just do 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter. All right. So this is a list of lists. So if you could imagine, we're reading a document, and everything we want to scoop it up into a list, which is our outside list, and then each line that we go through, we'll want to grab some information, right? And that information we grabbed would be some numbers, right? And then so each of these could represent a line. So that's like a use case of why you might have a list of lists. And then you want to flatten that list, right? So once you've scooped up that information, you might have a use case where you just want to have one list rather than having, multiple lists inside of a list of lists. Sorry if I sound confusing. So this is the way in which you would do that. So we would have, normally when I do that, I'll probably start off with my sub list first, right? So my second list. So for in, let's say sub list in list, and then for X in sub list, right? So what we've done, we've started off with for sub list in list. So here's the list, and then we've got our sub list, which are these, which we're looping through, and then we're going to put our sub list, the next for loop over here. Then we've got the sub list, and we're going to get each item within that list. And then what we're going to do, we are going to print it out. So we'll just print it out for them. Well, no, we won't print it out. We'll put that into another list. So let's say list 2 equals, and we'll have print L2. So here you can see we've now flattened that list, and we just have one list with those items. All right, that was just a quick one, and I will be doing more on for comprehension. So yeah, more videos to come. Nice one.